data. And so actually and I would also clarify that stellar parallax doesn't require you to know just the sides. What you have in that triangle are all three angles. We actually know all three angles because we would measure it when we're at a right angle, which is 90 degrees. And then you measure it again, and then that'd be 30 degrees. And then we know that the final one is 60 degrees. So we know all three angles, and we know at least we know one side, and it's not hard to figure it out from there. Speed of light is slowing down. I guess the best response I can give on that is that this was up for debate a couple of years ago, and in the last few years, it's been soundly refuted, and it's been rejected as a field of study. People are not actually out there arguing that the speed of light has slowed over time. Now, everybody has seen what happens when light goes through a window or a prism. You can slow light down through certain means, but light as a speed has not decreased over time. So it's like saying you can slow your car down as opposed to the speed limit has changed. The speed limit of light has never changed. It is absolutely reliable in that regard. I want to also address, incidentally, this argument has been listed by other creationist groups as one that creationists should not use. It's become an embarrassment to the international or the ICR group, and so this is not something that we as Christians want to hold on to. This is a completely refuted theory, and it doesn't support other data that we have. I also want to address a little bit about the usefulness of the distance measurements. Dr. Hovind mentioned that evolution, has never been shown to be useful, or neither has an old Earth or an old universe. And I don't believe in evolution, but I don't think we should measure theories based on their usefulness, but on their truth. So what does the data tell us? And science, data is not infallible, but we try to pull together all that we have and all that we know and see what it's telling us. And I don't believe that we ever want to hold up individual little pieces of data that conflict with the general body of data and say, this proves all the rest wrong. It's the same in good theology. We don't ever want to look for proof texts just to prove a point in the face of the rest of Scripture. Let's see. Mature Adam. I think we should distinguish between a mature Adam and an old Adam, just like we distinguish between mature Earth and an old Earth. So if we look at Adam in the garden, he was most certainly, the Bible tells us he was created fully grown. That is a mature Adam. But he certainly wasn't old. For all intents and purposes, he was like a newborn baby. He had no calluses. He wasn't balding. He didn't have liver spots or cavities in his teeth. So he didn't have the appearance of age. And I think that would be inconsistent. Again, if God created the light in between stars and here, there is no reason to have stars at all. All you have is the picture coming through space. So there's no reason to have stars at all. If he created the light, why create stars? Essentially, that's all we can see. There's no other way to detect stars or galaxies than by the light they send. It's impossible. So think about that. Why would God create an illusion, essentially, for us to look at if it wasn't true? I don't think that's consistent with him, and I don't think it's consistent with the Genesis account. And I would also just kind of say that my brother Hovind mentioned that we shouldn't limit God, and I agree. I think a small, very young universe and Earth does kind of limit God. It says we can fit it all inside of our brains. It's very simple, but in my view, what we're seeing out there is something that's huge and beautiful and vast and mind-boggling, and that is much more consistent with the God of the Bible, the God who is infinite in wisdom, infinite in understanding, all-powerful. And the universe is just a reflection of that. I see a universe that is just declaring loudly, our God is huge. He's beyond reason, beyond comprehension. You can only approach him a little bit by looking up there, but it should break your mind to try to get it all in. That's what I see when we look up there. It's a beautiful, huge universe, and it accurately tells us about the glory of the Creator. Okay. A couple other. There's the implication that we've heard many times is that astronomers can determine redshift or determine distances to the universe within the universe by only one method, which is redshift. There's parallax, which is another method. There's also pulsar frequency. You can tell some, combined with other data, you can tell how far away it is. There's many different methods. There's also, let's see here, we got so many things to cover. I've heard several arguments that light might take a shortcut through space. The problem with that is it flies in the face of general relativity. Einstein was very successful in describing the way that space is constructed. It seems hard to imagine, but we can actually measure the curvature of space, which is really an amazing accomplishment. And what we've seen is that the curvature of space outside of individual large bodies is very flat. And what that means is the distance is pretty easily measured because if the light is going through flat space, then it's going to take exactly as long as there are light years. So large distances based on flat space are consistent with other measurements that we have. So if we take a distance from stellar parallax on the one hand, and then we measure it via redshift on this side, then we actually find that they agree very closely. All right. Earlier, Dr. Hovind mentioned that Hugh Ross's statement about the universal flood was a deceptive answer, and I will defend my brother on that side and just say that is out of context. That's not what he meant. What universal, according to Hugh Ross, which I find to be a very compelling theory, is that universal takes into account the frame of reference that the people and Noah and God were working in that passage. So the theory would be that Noah would have been in an ark and floating on a giant flood that he couldn't have possibly seen any other land. He couldn't have seen, for all intents and purposes, it was universal. Okay, and that doesn't necessarily imply global. And I will clarify that I haven't fully reconciled this issue for myself. I think there has not been a satisfactory interpretation of the scientific evidence and an accurate rendering of Scripture that's all come together in one argument. So I think there's still an opportunity for Christian creationists who are also scientists to do a better job of interpreting the evidence. So thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to a different phase. This will be where the presenters question each other. The person who gets to ask the first question, then their opponent gets to give